Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our weekly Technologies of the Future webinar with live Q&A. This morning it is International Space Week, World Space Week, and we're going to talk about the convergence of space and satellites. So join us for this lovely conversation. World Space Week 2022, the theme is space and sustainability, focusing on achieving sustainability in space and achieving sustainability from space. The theme is inspired by how sustainability in space relates to how humanity uses space, most presently the orbital area surrounding Earth. Space exploration and remote Earth observation can help drive change for our home planet. This includes measuring climate change, identifying pollution on land and at sea, supporting agriculture in developing nations, and of the 169 targets that form the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, 65 directly benefit through Earth observation satellites and related technologies. And achieving the SDGs would be so much harder without the tools and techniques available to scientists through space exploration. So without further ado, I am going to invite our experts online this morning straight away to discuss the convergence of space and satellites. I'll say good morning to Christina and Brendan.
Good morning.
Good morning, Christina. You've lost your sound.
Oh, have I? Am I back?
Oh, there you are. Yep.
Excellent.
And Brendan has his video coming on, I think.
Oh, hello.
Good morning.
I think my computer needs some coffee.
That sounds great.
We're a complete match between us anyway. One video, one sound. So
perfect. What's your one word opener for this morning, Christina?
My one word opener is creative.
Brendan?
Infinity.
And beyond.
Beyond.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. So it is International Space Week, and Christina, you're just sharing stories about the rocket that just went up this week. I'm sure Brendan, you've been in tune with that as well.
Yeah, so really exciting. Well, see, space is it's a debatable topic, really, because you've got the people that love it, which we love everything. We see the value and the benefit, and there's hope and optimism in everything. And the SpaceX Crew 5 mission went up a couple of days ago, and just even watching the rocket take off, this huge thing take off, and you know that it's going to, but it's going to transport people into this other atmosphere. It's totally mystical and totally wondrous, and the collaboration, I love the collaboration that goes behind it, and all the maths and the science and the physics and the trajectory and where's it going to go. I think the whole idea, the whole concept, I go, who thought of that? And that's what I mean, like, that's creativity is such an amazing thing, and all these creative ventures that went in to create this beautiful looking rocket as well. It's nice and slim and white with some, very nice black lines on it. I'll stop. I'm very excited.
Brendan, I'm sure you're excited as well. Space, what are your views? What's the mindset?
I think space is like the ultimate, it's the ultimate thing that humanity can do, really. I mean, it's like I know we haven't explored all our oceans and things like that, but when you come down to it, it's like there's only one planet in the whole entire universe that we know of that has life on it and that we can live on, and that's this one. And going away from that planet just gives you a new perspective of just how small and insignificant we are. And in two ways, it shows you that anything's possible, and the other way, it shows you that we've got to be grateful for what we've got here on Earth. Of course, we've got to look after it, because there's really nowhere else we can go. Even if we go to Mars, it's not going to be, all sunshine and lollipops. It's just going to be not good. So we got to look after this Earth, and I think space exploration gives us that perspective that we are somewhat can do anything, but also looking back where it's kind of limited, and we need to look after the planet we've got.
You know what, Brendan, though, there was an article a couple of weeks ago that was talking about how they can actually they've found the components to actually create oxygen on Mars, And it reminded me of one of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies where they're on Mars and they've got the big dome, and then they suddenly realize that maybe they don't really need it. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is another science fiction to science fact kind of story, because they may actually be able to produce, like, we may be able to create the conditions. Of course, it may not happen tomorrow, but it's not an impossible task now because of some of the components that they've found.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, things are possible, but not in our lifetime. And that's what we got to think about, right? So we got to look after the Earth until we're actually at a stage where we can actually colonize other planets, right? We still got to look after this one. And that comes down to asteroid mining and all sorts of stuff where we can get actually new resources and stuff. And maybe we can start building structures in space from asteroids instead of actually, launching everything up from Earth. Or maybe even bringing stuff down. But the point is, space is exciting. Some people think it's a waste of money, but actually it's great because we've got so much useful stuff of satellites looking down upon Earth, looking at things like atmosphere and the water quality. They can even pinpoint plants, growth and weeds and all sorts of stuff. They can do a whole bunch of stuff from space that you couldn't do very, very well on Earth. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, sorry, there is no way I would go, that's, here's planet A, let's not worry about it, there's planet B. We absolutely need to look after, this is our home.
Yeah.
For me, that's the playground, this is our home and this is what we need to nurture. And so I would never suggest, just to clear that up for anybody that might be thinking otherwise.
It's interesting you say that. Beth Moses was recently on a trip just this week with the Acti community, and she worked on the International Space Station for a number of years, I think about 25 years, and now she heads up astronaut training for Virgin Galactic, and she was on the Virgin Galactic trip into space with Richard Branson, and she shared that it was like one of her realizations when she was up in space was the perspective that we're all connected. And when you're in space, you're looking down and you're just seeing how connected everybody is. Then that's why with Virgin Galactic, they actually want other people to have that experience. And so I think when you think of that and the connectivity, and whilst, we might be working from home or remote or in a city or somewhere in the world, the entire world is accessible now and more accessible through Zoom. How do we feel more connected more of the time? I think that's the mindset that I'm going with. And I loved the Apollo mission where Earthrise, the photo was taken, and I think it's the #1 environmental photo ever taken and the most famous environmental photo ever taken, which Earthrise. And it was when they came around the dark side of the moon and then around the other side, and then instead of seeing like a sunrise or the moon rising, it was the Earth was actually rising, which is just really cool perspective. But it is that view of us all in one little family photo together on the Earth. How do we actually treat each other a little bit more like that?
Yeah, I think the pale blue dot is also another similar one to that. It's where they actually had a picture taken from one of our satellites that is going out past, I think it was past Saturn or Jupiter, and it turned its cameras on to Earth, and literally is a small little tiny little blue speck, right? Which, Earth. It just shows how small we are, right? And insignificant in terms of the universe. So I think that does give us our perspective. And I think, as much as, everyone thinks that everyone's got their own little problems on Earth, which we do, right? As a whole, we needed to work together because that's where we live, that little small little speck, right? And we need to take care of this. And I think space gives you that unique perspective that people probably didn't have before, because everything feels really big when you're on Earth, right? When you're seeing it from space, it's really tiny.
It's like in history. Go on.
It brings me to the technology part of the conversation and that focus around satellites and space or observation from space. And you're reminding me of the telescopes that are available at the moment, and they're looking for different things outwards in the universe. However, there was one, they've turned it around and they were actually able to analyze a lot more with the strength of that. Was it the Hubble telescope? and they
And
took a
James Webb,
photo of-
the new James Webb telescope as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what they can actually know about the Earth from some satellite as powerful as that, which is pretty incredible. So, you know, what are your insights on those telescopes or on different satellites? And I know there's a few, so I'd love to open up that technology part of the conversation.
I'm really happy to say that that there was some conversation last week around the US starting to set rules around space junk, because there are, as you say, so many satellites, so many things that we've put out into the atmosphere, thousands more going up. But they're now concerned about the waste products from the satellite. So all the benefits, and it's kind of like it's this evolution. We've put them out there. We're garnering the benefits. The technology, as you say, is fantastic. It's giving us, people like Elon Musk working on connectivity, internet connectivity for remote areas and things like that through satellites. So the technology is going to allow us to expand and to increase knowledge, to make things hopefully more equitable. And then it's also now that we're concerned about the junk that we're putting up there, because people have been talking, haven't they, Brendan, about how much junk has been going into space. And I think this is one of the first real conversations that I've read about around addressing what that is.
Yeah, so there's even specks of paint can be lethal because they're traveling so fast, and some countries have actually gone and tested some weapons up in space, space satellite killing machines, and the problem with that is it's basically created even more high-speed space junk. There is I can't remember the name for it. There's a thing where there's a condition where there's so much space junk that humans won't be able to actually leave that area because there'll be just so much missing space junk going everywhere. So we do need to take care of that, because it is something that humans will want to send out rockets and stuff later on, and you don't want them to be smashed by a piece of space junk.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing too is that if we haven't learned, if one of the major lessons that we've been learning over the last little while is there's ongoing consequences for our actions, and it's those first order, second order consequences. And if we go back to the plastics and the absolute horrendous mess that plastics have us in, 50, 60 years later, we don't, as you say, suggest now, we don't want that facing us when we're in space. But if we turn it onto something that's a little bit more uplifting around space, I was watching the other day also, Peter Diamandis gave Steve Hawking the opportunity, took him on board one of the spacecraft and allowed him the ability to have the free gravitational, welcome back, nice to have you back, that free gravitational experience, which I thought was absolutely delightful. And the delight on Steve Hawking's face when I'm watching him float like this was absolutely incredible. So, as we were talking about the technology, it's, it's amazing the opportunities that we can bring.
Yeah, they literally shot a satellite at I think it was a comet, or maybe just an asteroid. Can't remember. But they actually hit it as a proof of concept for a satellite. Satellites protecting the Earth from basically these near Earth objects that could potentially smash into Earth later on, just to see if they could do it. And they successfully, hit it. And it was amazing to watch that live footage of the thing. At first, it looks like the large asteroid next to it wasn't moving at all, right? Because it was so big, and the small one was there, and then it suddenly just got closer and closer, and then boom. And they managed to have a look at what that satellite looked like. So it's not satellite, the asteroid looked like, where they thought it was going to be more dirt, but it was more rocky than they expected and things like that. So the fact that they could hit something that far away is absolutely mind-blowing.
And did they have controls on the rocket, so they were able to steer it? And
no, because it's going so fast. I think it was going like 30 kilometers a second or something like that, so it was quite fast. So it's all computer controlled. Yeah.
Amazing.
Just the maths involved in that, like, how do they know it? Like, how just to actually get it to a point where you really want it to go, throughout space, and know what's coming, and know the different atmospheric pressures in different areas, because there's different atmospheric pressures as you go further out, apparently. So, I find all that absolutely fascinating.
So sorry I dropped off. My Wi-Fi satellites went down, and I don't know if you've actually spoken about the Starlink or Earth monitoring, and planet.com or any of those satellites are actually giving us information on Earth.
We kind of mentioned Starlink, and we kind of meant goplanet.com, because we didn't talk about that. So share some of that information.
I guess this is one of my favorite topics, and because I love the Earth monitoring and just the ability to be able to create a digital twin of an item. So, we're using it more and more. I'm not sure if anyone's got the tags, the Apple tags, and you can see your things in your Apple phone and on a map. But imagining just what the Earth looks like and the digital twin of all of the items on space. And so planet.com were one of the first, I think they were the first launching, and they had originally about 250 satellites circling the Earth and giving real-time imaging back down to space, and you can develop on their platform. So people were originally using it for smart contracts for shipping. So for example, if you buy a shipping crate of apples and you have a smart contract, then the actual money transfer payment would go through when the ship arrived in your country or at your port based on the smart contract. And so being able to track those things from space and then automatically trigger contracts to be able to make payments. So shipping was a really cool use case scenario. And then they were looking at just Earth monitoring of the quality of the soil or the number of trees, and there's it's unlimited possibility if you're actually thinking of Earth monitoring for a developer to be able to go on and develop using that technology. So I think about, 5, 10, 20 years ago, you wouldn't even imagine that would be a thing that you could create a business model building on a platform like that. Any insights from you guys?
Digital twins. I think NVIDIA's making a digital twin of Earth now. I think they had one. They've had digital twins of Earth before, but this one's even better. They can map things almost in real time everywhere. And I think Microsoft Flight Simulator uses certain satellite stuff to actually create the terrain data, so you can fly through cities without having to manually program them yourself, right? So that's really exciting for things like gaming and navigation and stuff like that. You've got satellites constantly updating, and then you really could have like a digital twin of the Earth in real time everywhere, and then we could hook into it. And there's so much technology or experiences that you can create from that.
I'm thinking of Air Services Australia, and they have a digital twin of the air traffic control for the sky over Australia. And so imagining, let's say, a Qantas jet in physical form, and then the digital form of that is the same in this software. And so you're actually having a real-time traffic control from their technology, which is pretty cool. And, you can scale that down. And I think they're looking at now doing it for actual traffic, and you could do traffic light control, and you could do all sorts of different things based on that technology.
They're doing it a lot. They do it a lot for supply chain. So I've actually been in the control room of a supply chain area that was tracking the ships coming into the port. Even the other way around as well, like ships coming into the port, unloading, where everything was going onto trains, the whole train timetable. Because, if a ship is 10 minutes late, for example, the whole system needs adjusting, and coming back the other way as well. The trains coming into the port to empty the goods. So that whole supply chain is modeled and is dependent on a lot of that satellite control and information. And I actually don't think as we're walking at ground level, we're not aware of how many things are controlled by satellites from the sky, and even sensors on the ground. We actually don't really realize how many things are controlled by the technologies that are around us already.
Yeah, I'm a bit excited about the future of utilizing this technology, and I think that's supply chains are important. But let's think about the environmental monitoring that we can do. And I love trees and just looking at trees. And so I think the maximum count of estimate of trees that we've had on the planet was 7 trillion. And currently we're about 3 trillion trees on the planet. And we've got a net deficit of at least 10 billion per year. And so if you're actually looking, like 10 billion trees is a lot of trees. How many are we planting, and how do we do real-time monitoring of that so we can actually get it into a regenerative number, and the numbers aren't going down, they actually start going up? You know, what are those KPIs and those dashboards for the environment that we could know as a population and then know how to contribute towards something like that? You know, I'd really love to be able to help people decide to work on what's important and what's purposeful. And the book, The Most Comprehensive Guide for Climate Change, is a drawdown. They actually, in the book, they say, here's all of the different things that contribute to climate change, and they ranked them from 1 to in the hundreds. And I think number 6 was educating girls, and, you know, the impact that would have on climate change. And that fascinated me, actually. I just randomly opened the book the other day, it was this week, and saw number 6. I'd love to rank them from 1 to whatever number it is. I'm sure there's an infographic of that online if I searched it. But what are those things that can solve climate change, and what can we do monitoring those KPIs from space?
They actually monitor a lot too. There was an article a few weeks ago about the rivers that are drying up that we don't really see, but it's through that satellite control that we can tell, and getting that big picture. You know, even the what's going on in the Antarctic and the Arctic, and there's a lot of information that we garner from the satellites that are out there that can really help us create better futures for everybody, as you say, Lise, with the, you know, all the things that are written in that book, better futures for everyone.
It'd be good to have a lot of public access to those satellites as well, so that everyone can just access them. Yeah, we've spin off a few more businesses, but also just education. Imagine schools could just log into them and then do stuff in real time. I think it's got, it's really exciting. Just demonetize and democratize all satellite access.
But one of the missions of SpaceX, they've actually connected with a whole lot of schools, and they're going to be talking to schools from space and connecting with. That's part of the actual mission that they're on. So yeah, spot on, Brendan. That's fantastic.
Awesome. So shall I ask you both for a vision of the future? So the question is, it's 20 years into the future, based on our conversation this morning, the convergence of space and satellites. You've just woken up. What does the world look like? Brendan.
Well, always my dream just have the International Space Station actually being like an international space station, so everyone can go. And so hopefully rocket launches will be cheap enough for everyone to actually be able to achieve access to space. And we can have a permanent colony up there, you know, manufacturing, exploring, doing modeling of the earth, that sort of stuff, like so scientific investment, plus, you know, holidays and stuff like that for people can afford them. Hopefully it's affordable to most people. But a real international collaboration would be great.
So I would love with that space station, and also the holiday space station is built as well. And you can go up there and meditate closer to the stars, things like that. But I would like to be beamed up. I would like the fact that I think in 20 years' time, we don't need the rocket launches anymore. We've actually now have the capacity to beam me up, Scotty, and remain whole and intact, and like you say, Brendan, be able to experience. I think it you know, that feeling that Beth Moses described to you, Lisa, must be the most incredible experience to look back and see us all as that united one unit. I would absolutely love to be able to do that. And as you say, Brendan, to have the choice and for it to be affordable and achievable, and, you know, the effect that will have on children, and how excited they would be to not only go on the roller coaster at Disneyland, but to go and have a look and explore on the moon. I think that would be fantastic. But we're very much concerned about environment and ecology, and we're cleaning up after ourselves the whole way. Actually, we're not even making a mess in the first place. There you go.
I have a vision of Ready Player One and what you've shared, and we're all in our haptic suits and joining into the metaverse and being able to go to the International Space Station and have that view and spend time there. And I know there are VR apps that you can do that. So that's really cool. In 20 years' time, I'm thinking about waking up in the morning and the bathroom mirror is actually a KPI screen. We're watching a clip from Mark Zuckerberg talking about the latest in the next version of Oculus that they're putting out. And he asks all the time that what screens can we reduce? So do we need all of these screens, and how do we reduce them? And so you just can display anything anywhere, almost like Jarvis. And so the bathroom mirror for me, woken up, got the mirror, I've got my macro stats on one side, I've got my personal stats on the other side, and that's coming from the Aura Ring and the actual biology stats. But then the macro stats actually have space information. So, you know, it might be things that I've opted into, like decision science. I've decided that I actually want to be aware of these certain things. And, you know, one of them is going to be how many trees and what's the deficit or the positive, how are we tracking on that key number? And there might be soil quality might be on there, and all of the space stats. And then, you know, maybe there's a portal in the middle there I can actually zoom in and go into to see what the weather looks like. Instead of asking Siri, what's the weather today, I can actually just have real-time space view of the clouds over my home. And that would be pretty cool. Setting myself up for success for the day.
Love it.
Nice.
That's actually it for this morning's conversation. We are at time. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Christina. As always, thank you, Hayley, behind the scenes, and everyone who's joining us on our live stream. We are live streaming primarily from LinkedIn now, and these recordings are available on YouTube. So sorry, Mum, who's been missing me on Facebook. We are on YouTube, so she's going to have to subscribe. But thank you, everyone who has already done that. Make sure you click the link on YouTube and subscribe. We're putting all our content there. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.